What historical fact always makes you chuckle? That time when around 3 men claimed to be the Pope and all excommunicated each oath. Ancient Romans loved their dogs as much as we do. There are entire surviving texts of people talking about their daily, monotonous life with dogs. In some cases, we have more information about their dogs and what they did with them than other aspects of Roman life. On a less funny but sweet note, when their dogs died, many of them were given elaborate graves with highly decorative tombstones. They often carved poems about them, or wrote in length about how much they'll miss them, or what they loved about them most. These dog graveyards were considered sacred, and vandalizing them was a major offense. A Polish artillery supply corps adopted a bear, made him a soldier, and kept him for the duration of the war. Mishaw's ruins. Archaeologists explored some old Viking chambers and found inscriptions that were 14 feet tall and unreadable. After years deciphering these runes, they translated to, "This is very high. We haven't changed." Imagine patrolling the Alps and you see elephants rolling up, but you don't even know what an elephant is. In all the Apollo missions 3 guys were sent to the moon, but only 2 guys got into the lander and went down and walked on the moon. The 3rd guy stayed in the command module in orbit and had to listen to the radio chatter of the other 2 guys talking about how badass it was to walk on the moon. Napoleon had a brother who lived in New Jersey. There was a war between Michigan and Ohio over Toledo, and the Ohioans evacuated so fast there weren't even any casualties. As a result, the government gave Michigan the Upper Peninsula and Ohio got to keep Told. Pepsi, the soft drinks, once had the 6th largest military in the world. Due to an agreement with the Russians, they supplied them with drinks until Russia couldn't pay for them anymore. So instead they gave Pepsi an arsenal of submarines and other military equipment, leading to them having the 6th largest military in the world at that moment. When Governor George Wallace, backed by the Alabama National Guard, blocked 2 black students from entering the University of Alabama, President Kennedy simply took over the Alabama Guard and ordered them to remove Wallace from the entrance. How Emperor Frederick Barbarossa died by drowning in waist-deep water. And then how Hitler named a military invasion after a man who died by drowning in waist-deep water, which then failed. The Battle of Bull Run during the American Civil War was called the Picnic Battle because so many civilians from Washington went on picnics on the sidelines and watched. But once the battle actually started and the Union started to get its ass kicked, they all ran away, running over injured soldiers and dead bodies, and generally disrupting the battle. This was actually a relatively common thing during the Civil War. I know it happened at Gettysburg too. One of the founding fathers, Gouverneur Morris, killed himself by inserting a whale bone into his urethra to help clear up a urinary tract blockage. Giles Corey, one of the men accused and killed during the Salem witch trials, was pressed to death. There was a phrase an accused person was supposed to say even they were brought in for charges, without which a trial couldn't happen. He paused, evidently a bit shocked at what he considered the absurdity of being accused. He was like 75 years old, and the panel he was brought before began to panic. Then he realized what was going on and decided to simply refuse to say the phrase so they couldn't try him for being a witch. He was brought to basically a ditch, a plank of wood placed over him, and large stones placed on the wood. The intention was to press the phrase out of him. His last words are alleged to be "more weight." The US and North Korea almost went to war over a tree. The US wanted to chop down a few branches because they could not see the DPRK guard post. The US chopped some branches and pissed off the North Koreans. The North Korean guards killed 2 US soldiers. In retaliation, the US created Operation Paul Bunyan. The mission chopped down the tree. A few guys went to the tree and had the support of a US infantry company, and 20 utility helicopters and 7 Cobra attack helicopters circled behind them. Behind these helicopters, B-52 Stratofortresses came from Guam, escorted by US F-4 Phantom seconds from Kunsan Air Base, and South Korean F-5 and F-86 fighters were visible flying across the sky at high altitude. At Taegu Air Base, F-111 bombers of the 366th Tactical Fighter Wing out of Mountain Home Air Force Base were stationed, and F-4C and D Phantoms from the 18th TFW Kadena Air Base and Clark Air Base were also deployed. The aircraft carrier US Midway Task Force had also been moved to a station just offshore. The mission was a success. During the Austro-Prussian War, Liechtenstein sent out an army of 80 men. They came back with 81 men, having suffered no casualties, and made a friend of one Austrian man who they brought back home to Vaduz with them. This means that they came back home stronger than they had when they were sent out. Lenin was really into fitness. While he was in exile in Switzerland, an Olympic weightlifter who was a communist came to visit him. Lenin was super excited and immediately got this man to teach him how to lift the barbell properly using brooms, because they were the closest thing to a barbell at hand. Lenin's wife Nadezha saw them and started giggling about how stupid they looked, and Lenin apparently said stop laughing. This is serious business. The bat bomb. A dentist friend of Eleanor Roosevelt's proposed that not only were the Japanese terrified of bats, bats could roost in difficult to access areas of Japanese buildings. Combine this with a timed incendiary device and the wood and rice paper construction of Japanese buildings. The Army Air Force spent 6 months trying to build the damn things and achieved little aside from burning down the test range at Carlsbad Army Airfield Auxiliary Air Base when some of the bats escaped, nested under a fuel tank, and did their patriotic duty 6,000 miles from the intended target. After the debacle at Carlsbad, the USAF fobbed the project off to the Navy, who wisely passed it along to the Marines. To everyone's surprise, the Marine Corps was able to get the project to work, even carrying out a successful test at Dugway Proving Grounds in Utah. Unfortunately, the project lost out to the atomic bomb and was cancelled in early 1944. Bruce Wayne could not be reached for comment. Adolf Hitler had many physical ailments. His rampant drug use is well known, but of his lesser known issues is that he suffered a lot of stomach problems as well as occasional insomnia. So his infinitely wise doctor prescribed him laxatives and sleeping pills. The combination of that then gave Hitler really bad and embarrassing gas problem. The Soviets had specially trained dogs for space launches. Before one launch the dog ran away, so they just grabbed a random stray, named it substitute for missing Bobik, and sent it instead. The Apollo 10 mission is involved in several mysteries, from spooky music heard by the crew on the far side of the moon, to the ongoing search for Snoopy and possible recent sightings of its long-lost S4B stage. However, the most fascinating mystery of Apollo 10 has to be the infamous Rogue Turd incident. You can't make this shit up. On Lewis and Clark's expedition, William Clark was accompanied by his slave York. Local natives had never seen an African man before. There were instances of them trying to scrub the color off his skin. Some of the tribesmen insisted he have sex with their wives. In 80th BC, a man named Vers became governor of Sicily, was simultaneously an absolute tyrant and madlad. On one hand, he would tax his citizens so highly and overwork his farmers so much there was an alarmingly high suicide rate in the rural community of Sicily. On the other hand, the man accomplished hilarious levels of shithousery. When invited for dinner by people, he would have his servants steal expensive bits of artwork, jewelry and cutlery when no one was looking and then leave. My favorite thing he did was appoint a butcher as head of the Sicilian Navy, just so he could sleep with the man's wife. This led to pirates sacking Sicily, because of course it fucking did. He was a butcher in charge of a navy protecting an island in the middle of the fucking Mediterranean, and then doing a lap of honor around the island. Vers eventually retired, forcibly after word of his fuckery had reached Rome, to the south of France, where he would live to a ripe old age before being proscribed, assassinated by order of the Roman dictatorship, by Mark Antony over a dispute about one of his, probably stolen, artworks. All in all, an amusing life. Esperanto is a relatively famous invented language made in the 1880s. It has a few million speakers worldwide, including native speakers over the course of multiple generations. Its purpose was to be a language that all people could easily learn, regardless of where they are from, so that everyone had a mutual language. This is known as an auxlang. It's one of the most successful invented languages in history, if not #1. What makes me chuckle is that part of what helped propel it to popularity when it was made is that there were already people looking for a good auxlang, but the language holding that role at the time, Volapük, was pretty bad and everyone hated the creator. When Esperanto was made, the creator was much nicer to deal with, so everyone abandoned Volapük and joined the Esperanto movement.